in one of my favorite Terry Pratchett books, in Going Postal, you get a view into the board that operates the clacks. And one of the characters, Mr. Pony, he's the head engineer of the clacks. And his character is always like, he's the engineer, he's the holdover from the company, because let's face it, if he went, it would all collapse, He is the only guy on the board who knows how the clacks operates. And it gets to a point in the book where the board is really worried, and they sort of turn to Mr. Pony. And Mr. Pony, I think, is described almost as the old god with his fist full of pink post-it notes with all the messages and missives that he sent to the board about all these problems that they're having that they have ignored. And it was, and he says that he could feel like he's an old god peering down from the cloud with his thunderbolts or his pink post-it notes, and he's waving in his arms going, "See, didn't I tell you? Didn't I warn you these things were going to happen?" And that's where we are today. This is really the first summer we have had under these new travel restrictions, and well, they're only going to get worse. If you think that, oh, this is just a one-off, this is not going to be every summer. Oh no. Oh no, this is going to be a permanent thing. Just as we have seen a permanent trouble at the airports since Brexit, we are now also going to see permanent disruptions at the border. This is the new normal in Dover. And it ain't going to change anytime soon. In fact, from the things that are going to be coming in, which we'll get into in a moment, things are probably about to get a whole lot worse. A whole lot worse. So, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, there is the YouTube subscription service as well, where you can join the Pony Club. And of course, you can also join the YouTube thank you button down below as well. So let's go over to this. This comes from a UK in a Changing Europe, one of their commentary pieces on this exact question. Is this now the new normal for Britain's border? So, the queues of people trying to access the continent via Dover are emblematic of the change in the status of the UK-EU border, and the challenges are going to grow. Hard borders can be managed more effectively, but it will take significant adjustment and collaboration on both sides to make it so. And it is fair to say that there is a certain sense of national pride in the British ability of queuing well. Turning it into a national pastime was hardly on the list of Brexit objectives. Yet, the queues in question and the queues of vehicles waiting to cross the channel last week were the worst in recent memory. And there is nothing like the heartstring realization that you simply just won't make it abroad in time to bring home the reality of a border to those of us who have become accustomed to easy travel. Travel between Britain and the EU is becoming more complicated than it used to be. The border is a hard one, and that is not just an abstract concept. Juxtaposed controls operate at the channel, meaning that you get permission to enter France before you've even stepped foot off England, and vice versa. Permission to enter the EU is given by the French border guards at Dover, and EU border guards are slowly moving towards a system to make sure that visitors do not exceed the allotted amount of 90 to 100 days period allowed for UK citizens to visit the Schengen zone. This requires entry and exit checks. And these are present at no e-gates that can stamp passports or even calculate a stay. Whilst it takes two sides of a border to make a border easier to cross, it only takes one of those operating on one side of the border to make it hard. And this can happen by omissions as well as by intention. The lack of border guards to process passengers can dramatically slow things down. as can inadequate infrastructure and information of managing the sheer volume of them. Border management requires long-term, multifaceted strategic preparations, investment, and interagency cooperations. And the Dover queues in July were merely a taster of what is to come. So, merely a taster of what is to come if we do not sit down and work out a plan with the EU on passenger and customs visitations in the long term. And trust me, the government are not interested in sitting and talking down with the EU, because even though they know if they sit down, they can probably do a lot of stuff if they negotiated it. The problem is you've got the ERG and the Brexiteers who will jump on that and say that this is a form of, capitulation. And that's probably why they're not going to do it. And that's probably why Liz Truss, when she gets in, will probably also not do it as well, and probably go even harder on many of these things. But anyway, we'll continue. So the slight increase in transition times already experienced at the French passport controls as they have moved towards passport stamping and comprehensive passport swipes, is set to get even longer. The EU Smart Borders Programme will introduce the new Entrant-Exit System, or the ECS, and the European Travel Information and Advisory System, or the ETIAS, next year for all third country visitors. This includes British travellers in order to replace passport stamping. British passengers will have to register their biometrics, that's face and fingerprints, and complete an online application form before they even are allowed to enter the EU. Biometrics will have to be verified at each entry and exit from the Schengen zone to give the EU greater control over third country visitors, and obstacles for delays and movement in the reverse direction will get worse too, as the UK government rolls out its own electronic travel authorization scheme, a scheme for EU visitors who will also need to apply for permission before they travel. Both of these incentives involve biometric registration and recognition to a greater or lesser extent, and passengers will need to have obtained a digital permission to board trains, ferries in both directions, or face being denied boarding altogether. There have been no plans published so far to introduce the technology and automation in Dover or even Calais to facilitate this for vehicle traffic. As for customs, the government has introduced a new deadline of the 31st of December 2023 to implement all the previous border operating model, which is equally, if not more, challenging. And traders who were previously able to, quote, roll off ferries on the foot of the cliffs and then onto the UK motorways will be required to submit more paperwork and may well have to divert to border inspection points for inland in for further inspection. And we've talked more about the opportunities for smuggling that those inshore border checkpoints are going to entail. All in all, Brexit is far from done in terms of the UK-EU borders. The UK government's 2025 border strategy is in the phase of trials and consultations before it is even fully rolled out. For example, the Cabinet Office leading on establishing the ecosystem of trust between government agencies and complex supplier networks, and even the Home Office has established a border vision advisory group to try and develop the technical solutions with industry. Yet, it is not possible to unilaterally make cross-border movement smoother. There is no evidence that any of these UK government programs or even initiatives will run concurrently with the French government or even those with the wider EU, in which case there is a danger of misalignment on either side of the border and could see queues on both sides becoming the new normal. Back in 2020, we pointed to the need for the partnership and cooperation and preparation by the UK authorities to minimise this friction on the Irish Sea border under the protocol and Northern Ireland. The same principles do hold true in that case, and although it may seem very counterintuitive, taking back control of borders is necessarily an exercise in collaboration, and without that, the queues will only grow, as well as the economic disbenefit to both sides, not to mention the stress levels of millions of hapless holidaymakers. So, here we are standing, like some old ancient god with his post-it notes, looking down upon the board, shouting, "See, didn't I warn you? Didn't I tell you?" And all we have is still our pink flimsies. Can't even say it. Pink flimsies from when we were all back in 2016 going, by the way, these are going to be problems. How are we going to solve these? And of course, when we passed them over to the board, the answer was, oh, no, that's just Project Fear. That's never going to happen. We'll have this wonderful digital cyberpunk border, which never exists and does not exist anywhere in the world. Needs to say, these two advisory groups, when they report, I wouldn't be surprised if all they say, we need actually closer cooperation with the EU to make sure that there is less, less disruption at the border. And of course, the Brexiteers will be gawk and aghast. How dare we work such closely with the EU? How. But of course, once again, this is Brexit. And yet again, Brexiteers seem to forget that Britain is not going to just magically up sticks and just swim off somewhere into the Atlantic or Pacific Ocean. We ain't going to get it anywhere. Geography will always be a thing. And, you cannot escape geography. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And, of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.